leaving the club mid-table without any clear path to sustained improvement. While owner Roman Abramovich took the unprecedented step of adding his comments describing Lampard as an icon of the club whose status remains undiminished. Lampard was handed the reins just 18 months ago. Under him, Chelsea finished fourth last season and reached the FA Cup final. But more than £200 million was spent on players in the summer, and when a title challenge failed to materialise, he was dismissed, like many before him. Claudio Ranieri was the first casualty of the Abramovich era back in 2004. In fact, 10 full-time managers, some who enjoyed huge success, have been sacked since the billionaire bought the club nearly 18 years ago.
And all we can really do is to sympathise with him, and in most of our cases empathise with him, because if you've been in football a long time, there won't be many people who can look back and say, I never once got the sack.
Chelsea are expected now to turn to the former PSG manager Thomas Tuchel, but whoever comes to Stamford Bridge will find, more often than not, reputation counts for little in the long run. Katie Gornall, BBC News.
Okay, somebody.
That's it from us. Now BBC One, it's time for the news where you are. Have a good night.
Welcome to Wales Today. The headlines. Wintry weather slows COVID vaccinations. The Health Minister can't say whether targets have been met. And growing concerns for workers' safety at the DVLA in Swansea. 500 workers have contracted COVID since the pandemic began. Good evening. The Health Minister has admitted that wintry weather over the weekend has slowed the pace of COVID vaccinations. As a result, and due to data delays, Vaughan Gething says he can't yet say whether 70% of over 80s and 70% of care home residents and staff had been vaccinated by last night, a promise he repeated several times last week. Our health correspondent, Owen Clark, reports.
How do you speed up the rollout of the jab so many people desperately want when the weather's like this? With ice and snow hitting many places yesterday, fewer than 6,500 vaccines were reported to have been given out in Wales, the lowest number in a while, although data delays along with the elements might have played a part. In the Cwmtaf Morgannwg Health Board area, 4 vaccination centres couldn't open at Bridgend, Abercynon and Trondda, though they and the centre in Merthyr were back in business today. But the truth is, before the weather took its toll on Sunday, the effort to get jabs into people's arms had been ramping up quickly. This graph shows the number of first doses given each day increasing through last week before peaking at more than 28,000 on Friday. Our analysis suggests that if they could repeat that level of activity for the next 20 days, all 4 priority groups, including the over 70s, would have been offered a vaccine by the Welsh Government's mid-February target. Are you on track, given what we saw in the early part of the weekend?
Yes, I think we are on track. And obviously the weather yesterday was another intervening factor that prevented us from achieving more.
But throughout last week, he kept telling us another target would be met, and that 70% of over 80s and 70% of care home residents and staff would have been offered the jab by the end of yesterday. So did it happen?
Well, I hope we'll be able to do that by Wednesday. If it takes another day, then it takes another day. If we're able to do it earlier, we'll do it earlier. But whenever that information is available, we will of course publish it.
There will still be many people in Wales in the top priority groups that won't have been vaccinated yet, and we need to use the lessons that clearly have been learned over the last few days.
We keep calling for a vaccination minister to be at the heart of it, to make sure that there is no lack of energy, there's no lack of decision making, to keep the energy within this rollout.
Sunday's disruption was no doubt a setback for a vaccination programme that had been gathering pace, and the promise is everyone who lost out will be rebooked early this week. But beyond each stat, there's a story, and this is how one North Wales doctor battled the elements.
I came in with my shovel and we started digging and get the snow away, and do you know what? Everyone turned up. Not quite on time, but that was fine. Everyone turned up. Everyone had a vaccine. Nobody was turned away. I was fully aware really of the privileged position I was given to try and do this, because I knew if we could prove to other areas and the government that this was possible, then there would be no reason why it can't be replicated in other areas. And so that was a pressure, but also the emotion. It was such an emotional experience for us all. I mean, tears were shed and laughter. It was just such a joyful experience, and absolutely hope was the overwhelming feeling over the weekend for everyone, really.
When Betty Williams from Anglesey finally got her jab on her 91st birthday, it was the ultimate present.
It's an odd feeling having an injection on your birthday, but I think it's one of the best presents I could have, really, to be quite honest.
But many others are still waiting and becoming ever more frustrated. They just want their jabs urgently, whatever the weather.
23 more deaths of people with COVID have been reported by Public Health Wales, taking the total number here to 4,533. 872 more people have tested positive for COVID. To date, there have been 188,583 confirmed cases of the virus here. There are growing concerns tonight for workers' safety at the DVLA in Swansea after figures revealed that 500 workers have contracted COVID since the pandemic began. One local MP says workers are petrified of going into the office, but she says archaic technology means they're unable to work from home. Nick Pallett reports.
A steady stream of traffic at shift change and a car park that's far from empty shows many staff here at the DVLA are not able to work from home. In December, a COVID outbreak was declared at their Llansamlet centre after 352 cases of coronavirus in 4 months. One local MP says many staff have contacted her, raising concerns for their safety.
People are petrified to come into work. There's too many people on each floor, and they don't have the safety measures in place in order to feel safe. You know, it's their right to be able to feel safe at work. Other people have shown that they're agile enough, and it really shouldn't be beyond the wit of the government to be able to put in place the measures and the systems that people can all work from home.
A DVLA spokesperson insisted it follows guidance to help keep offices COVID secure. But an anonymous worker has told BBC Wales certain people sit back to back less than a metre apart. They say it's been mentioned that you don't need your track and trace app on, and that if someone's gone off with COVID, the people who haven't had their app on haven't been sent home. They'll say your app hasn't pinged, you're not going home. People are scared. I've heard of some people walking out. The First Minister says he's raised the issue with UK transport ministers repeatedly, and the PCS union have also raised concerns. Now a leading expert in occupational health has added to those concerns after the results of an online survey he conducted with 700 DVLA staff.
There is no question that this particular organisation, these particular workplaces are amongst the worst, if not the worst. And that would appear to be borne out by the statistics, which show 500 positive cases is really quite literally the worst workplace outbreak in the UK.
In a statement, the DVLA insisted that safety was a priority, and they say some staff have been able to work from home in line with government advice, though they say others were required to be here in the office due to their specific roles. They say they've worked closely with Public Health Wales, Swansea Council and union officials to try and make their buildings COVID safe. They also say they've opened an additional site in this city. Nick Pallett, BBC Wales Today, Swansea.
A bridge that was swept away in last week's floods could take years to rebuild. Denbighshire Council said drawing up the plans for Llanelch Bridge could take 18 months or more. The bridge linking Trefnant and Tremerchion was built in the 1800s and is Grade 2 listed. Bridge traffic is currently being diverted along the A55 and through St Asaph. Main Spectator Sports in Wales will get £18 million to help them through the pandemic. Most of the money has come from the Welsh Government, with £13.5 million going to rugby. The WRU made a loss of more than £5 million in the last financial year, and with Six Nation Games being played in empty stadiums next month, it'll miss out on vital revenue. Thomas Davith has more.
A Welsh derby without the fans. All 4 regions and the Welsh Rugby Union will receive an equal share of £13.5 million. The union says it's timely and hugely helpful. With no fans at the Six Nations next month, the WRU will miss out on £14 million. That's on top of the £21 million in lost revenue last autumn. £17.7 million is being given in all, the money proportionate to the losses suffered by each sport in Wales, with rugby receiving the most. The Football Association of Wales will receive £1.5 million, horse racing £1.2 million, cricket £1 million, while ice hockey, rugby league and netball will get significantly smaller grants. Welsh Netball say that money will keep them afloat, for now. Up to 1,500 people would normally turn up to watch the national side, but with no fans allowed in, turnover has halved to £500,000.
The financial state of our sport right now is dire. The announcement of today's investment is a lifeline. The longer the pandemic goes on, the more and more the financial challenges become more and more difficult. So yes, incredibly grateful and thankful for the announcement of the investment that's coming from Sport Wales, and also the recognition that netball at the elite level as a solely female sport is recognised at the contribution that it plays in Welsh society and for women and girls as well.
The grandstands here at Chepstow Racecourse have been empty for a year. Now it will receive £400,000, so too Force and Bangor-on-Dee.
That cliche phrase they use on TV for Tesco's, every little helps, is true. It does help. It's a fairly significant sum. My responsibility locally at Chepstow and Foss is to generate revenue through admissions, ticket sales, catering, all the range of non-racing events that we hold, and all of that has disappeared.
While welcome, the money is no long-term fix. The uncertainty continues, with the Welsh Government saying there's no magic date when fans can return.
Well, time for the weather. And Derek, have we seen the last of the snow now?
Not quite, Lucy. There is milder weather on the way, though, with rain and a thaw of lying snow, and that could lead to some localised flooding later this week. At the moment, though, it's dry and cold out there with a widespread frost, and then after midnight, cloud will increase with spots of rain in the north and west and little snow on higher ground. Not as cold as it was last night, but most places below freezing, and there is a Met Office yellow warning in force for icy patches inland. Snow that melted today will refreeze. Now tomorrow it's all changed with a frontal system moving in from the Atlantic. That'll bring a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow. An icy start for some of us tomorrow morning. Then here comes the rain. There will be some sleet and also some snow on the hills and mountains. A little snow, I think, for the heads of the valleys, but that will turn to rain. Some heavy rain easing off as we go through the afternoon, leaving misty low cloud and spots of drizzle, and temperatures slowly rising, 9 or 10 Celsius in Pembrokeshire. Now across the rest of the UK tomorrow, a dry and bright start in parts of the east, but rain and sleet will spread from the west. Most of the snow on higher ground in the north, the Pennines and parts of Scotland, drying up in Northern Ireland. The top temperature in Plymouth, 10 Celsius, but only 3 in Glasgow and Newcastle. Now into Wednesday, a drier day, just a few spots of light rain. And then later in the afternoon, more rain will reach the south and west with a high of 10 Celsius. Now on Wednesday night, it's looking wetter and windier too. Some heavy rain, that will clear, so dry for a time on Thursday, but there is more rain on the way and milder with a thaw of lying snow. Nostar, back to Lucy.
Derek, thank you very much, and that is Wales Today. We'll have the latest from around 6:25 in the morning in BBC Breakfast, but now, good night.
Okay, just holding you 2, 1, and you're clear.
Good job.